Okay, for today's page, we're actually stealing a technique back from the scrapbook paper, mixed media paper industry. The first time I saw someone creating their own resist paper was, I want to say, Mariah Johnson. I think that's her name. And she did it with, what'd she use? I think she used glossy varnish, or she might have used some type of a gloss gel medium or something like that. And then not too long after that, maybe a couple of months, probably in time for the next chop, scrapbook companies started doing it, and now you have all these resist papers. Now, mind you, I love them, they're beautiful. And for those people who don't create their own materials, they're obviously an awesome thing. I have at least 2 packs, I think, that have resist papers in them, so I'm not against them or anything. However, it started out as, you know, something that an actual mixed media artist figured out and did, and then they kind of took it over. So I kind of want to just take it back. And I want to do something a little bit different, though, than just what everyone, you know, the scrapbook companies have done so far. I want to do my own twist on it. Now, unfortunately, this is absolutely going to be a specific supply-oriented page. And the supply that you need to have is any type of a glossy pen, or any kind of pen that will dry, that dries glossy. I use these glaze pens. You can also do, where are my glue pens? Hang on just a second. I need to get my supplies a little bit better ordered. I have this one, but I also have the 2-way, and I don't think I would use the 2-way simply because it's going to stay sticky and it's not going to dry to a glossy sort of finish. So those are out. This one can stay in because it is just scrapbooker's glue, so it will actually fully dry. So you could use this to draw with to create a kind of a resist. And if you're working on a white background, you can use something like the Tulip Slick Sticks. Warning, the Slick Sticks, as well as these glossy ones and a lot of other shiny resist-like products, are going to be sticky. They're never, this stuff never, I mean, it sticks, drives me crazy. It's pretty, I like it, but it's sticky. I go over this stuff with cold wax so that it stops being so sticky. Even with the wax, you have to get it on there pretty thick and let it really dry and harden. Otherwise, this stuff will it'll wipe off of it and stay kind of sticky. But you can use this if you're working on a white background. And then if you're working on a colored background, you can use, hold on, bear with me, I'm digging things out as I talk, which is a little bit rude. I should have better prepared, because I can't find the things that I want. Digging. Bear with me. Now, some of these might not be viable any longer because I gotta tell you, these are from my card making days. When I moved here recently, I actually got stuck at having to be responsible for all the crap that I had stored away in my garage in boxes. Lazy girl. And some of those things that were stored were old supplies from my crafting art, my greeting card days. And these were in there. So, let's see here really quickly. Also, apparently, in there was a greeting card that I created for someone for Christmas. They must have been my Christmas cards one year because there's a whole stack of them. And they've just got this little piece of toilet paper in there. Apparently, I must have thought the ink was going to be wet or something. And they were never finished. They were never embellished. I used to go by Blueberry Crafts many, many moons ago. This was back in 2000. So that's what, 12 years? That's a long time. Okay, so these are, this one doesn't even have a sticker on it, but these are, Gary Berlin and Company glitter glues. That's what some of them, or no, I guess that's what all of them are. Yeah, that's what these all are. Gary Berlin and Company glitter glue. Now you would probably find them just as stickles. This one is completely separated. I don't know if that's going to be any good at all. It's really runny instead of being kind of thick. So I don't think I'll try that one. Now this one is like, doesn't even move. It's stuck in there, so it probably isn't even going to come out. Same thing. This one is moving though, and this one's full. This one was never even open. This is like a multiple color, darker multicolored glues. Okay, so that's what these are, just little glitter glues. Obviously because they're glue, they're going to be a little bit of a resist. Oops. I'll be right back. Okay, I managed not to curse or anything, but can I just say, they call me constantly, and there's no consideration for the fact that I'm trying to work. Drives me insane. Okay, so next, this is also a newer, it's not 20 years old, swirl glitter glue. And then finally, this is just a glossy varnish. I think it's glossy. It's got to be. This is just glossy varnish, and all I've done is put it in a needle tipped bottle, and you can write with it and you can make designs with it, so that's another good option. And then, I forgot to mention these are fabric writers. They're called Scribbles. Pretty sure they still make these. They're slightly three-dimensional. This again is back from my card making days, and if I remember correctly, these are really sticky also. I think anything that's for fabric for some reason is, if it's glossy, or in fact even if it's matte, I've seen the matte little 3D embellishment things are also sticky. So it's up to you. Like the varnish, this will dry completely flat, it self-levels, and it's glossy, but it's not sticky. This probably, out of everything that I've shown as options, this is the one that's not sticky. Okay. If I'm working on paper that has color on it, I use, these are the glaze pens, glaze from Sakura, I don't know how to say it. But this one is clear, and you'll know it's clear because it says it's glazed. There's a white, a souffle pen that is white that has a clear top on it. Not, I don't think it's a glaze pen. Hang on. I don't think there's a white glaze, but yeah, there's not. So like I marked the caps at first until I finally realized that, if it says souffle, it's going to go down completely clear. It's going to dry to an opaque white. Very similar to the Jelly Roll, standard Jelly Roll white pen. But the difference is this one goes down clear, this one goes down white. They both dry to white. This one dries a little more matte. And this one obviously costs more because you generally have to buy it in that whole set. Whereas this Jelly Roll, it goes down solid white so you can see what you're writing, as well as you can buy these individually. Another thing to note too is that these are both waterproof. Okay, so if you write on something with your white pen and then later on you go over and you add wet medium, it's not going to blur and smear all over your page. And you know, I am a mixed media art journaler. I'm not a dry media art journaler. The odds that I'm going to put something wet over top of it are very high. So for me, that's a big selling point. I know a lot of people like to use that other one, what is it? I think it's made by Uniball. Problem is, A, they skip horribly and they cost way too much money, and finally, they're not permanent. And I can't stand it when they're not permanent. So if you use this on white paper, it's going to show up white. But if you say use this on, alright, so we'll do a little test. This is a Distress Stain. It's Faded Jeans. I'm just going to put a little bit of that color down, and I'm just going to let that dry. So we'll ignore it for now. These, though, however, are going to go down with a slight translucent color. They're not an opaque color, so if you try to use this on black, you're not going to, you know, you're hardly or barely going to see, because we're doing a little bit of pen work. I'm going to pull this camera down, so bear with me. Whee! There you go. That's that's manual zoom. All right, so these are going to be a little bit glossy. They're not quite as glossy. The one that's the absolutely unbelievably glossy is actually the black one, which I'll show you in a minute. So, you know, they're going to go down slightly translucent, and which is good because it means you can layer them, which is awesome fun, and we'll do that here in just a second. I have like multiple sets, so I have multiple. Some of them I have duplicate of the color. So I'm going to show you the black, which is super, super glossy. And it usually comes out, in my opinion, a little thicker than the other colors. I don't know if, you know, that it's probably a difference in the viscosity of the ink. It usually comes out just a little bit more ink, more fluid. It takes a few minutes for these to dry though. So what I want you guys to do, or us to do, this one's got junk on the end of it, is doodle. I don't care if it's just random scribbles like this. I don't care if you use the opportunity to do some writing. Maybe you can practice your lettering. What I want is you to fill an entire journal page completely with inks that are going to be shiny. Now, if you do not have these glaze pens, don't despair. You can still, you know, do this lesson, these pages. If you don't have a needle-tipped bottle, you can actually, I used to save these little bottles because first off, it's got a very fine end. Second, these just pop out. You just take a pair of craft pliers and, let's see, in the set that I have these that are flat, and they only have just like, it's not really even textured. It's not quite smooth, but there's not a lot of lines or anything. They're nice and flat, and you just grab a hold of that little tip. You can't really hurt it. And then these are so old, they're probably glued shut forever. But there we go. You can just pull the little tips out, so you can refill these with anything. Also, along those same exact lines, grab one. Alcohol inks, same type of tip. It pulls right out. So when you use one up and it's empty, you can clean them out and refill them with something else. So you can always do that. And then, you know, worst case scenario, you don't have any of these things, but you do have a small paintbrush, and it doesn't have to be, I love to use a liner brush, and that's because they're really long, so they hold a lot of fluid in them, and they bend really well for drawing and writing. But you don't have to have that. You can also just simply have any type of, this one, a little bent, huh? This one's going to go into the oil painting jar because I've bent it so much. But, and you can use any type of a small round brush and draw with it. You can, let's be honest, also draw with any type of a flat brush. And all you need is something that's glossy. So whether it's a varnish, a gloss medium, anything that's going to be even a glossy paint, you can do this technique with it. So put all the stuffs away. I will give you an example, you know, from several of these ideas that I've just shown you, just so that you can actually see that what I'm saying. I'm looking for different brush ends. These are all boring. Oh, you know you have a problem when you have too many brushes and you think they're all boring. I just don't have a lot of, I don't think I have any filberts in here, do I? I think all my filberts have migrated to the oil painting area because I love to use them. These brushes are also fun to, where is that? These brushes are fun to use too. The angle brush, or no, what are these called? I know what they're called. Nah, for the life of me, it's just not there. I keep wanting to say angle brushes, and that's not what it is. Fan brush. Me oh my. So any kind of a brush, you know, mark making tool is going to get you there. I'm pretty feisty when it comes to, you know, forcing people to have to buy supplies. I don't want you to have to buy anything. So as I was saying before, these are, you know, they can be layered. So like I can go, well, that's a little strong of a color. It might not show through. But you can see it here with the L. You know, you can easily see that dark blue through it. So these are fun because you can layer them. We'll put some of the clear down. Now on an untreated paper, these glaze pens soak in quite a bit, especially this particular paper. You can use a harder cardstock. So I know this is bright neon, but this has a much tighter weave to the fibers. So it's not, this is by no means, it's still matte. It's not glossy or slick, but the pens will be a little bit more glossy on here. You'll also get a really awesome effect if you go over your lines. Everywhere that you've crossed over, you're going to get more of an effect than with just one pass with the glaze pens. Another thing is you can do whatever your design is. The darker colors are always more fluid for some reason. It must have to do with the way they produce their ink. And my brain is just going, what? It's just stopping. What are you trying to draw here? Chicky Doodle? Is going back over, let it soak in and let it dry. I'll show you that in a minute. And then, you know, go back over it again, and then you're doubling up on it. Okay, let's do some with the clear varnish. I'm going to pull back a little bit again on the camera. Sorry about that. Hold on. Wee, oops. There we go. Don't need to be seeing none of that business. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little flower or something. I don't know what. I love this because you don't have to put a whole lot of pressure to get it to come out. And you can really get some fun, you know, fine lines and fine designs. And it's gonna, it does, varnish does level. Even, I've seen people say, oh, it's not self-leveling, but it still levels out. I've never seen a varnish that doesn't level. To some degree anyway. Me and my big old flowers. So in a way, this is kind of like the doodle pages. In a way, not entirely. In the respect that we need to fill it with something. I'm going to put a little bit of this on the distress stain just so we can see how it looks. So you can see it's clear, and when we cover this with any paint or ink or whatever, it's going to preserve or resist the paint, and so you're still going to see the blue. So we'll do that with the clear one as well. I'm just kind of doubling up over top of it so that it'll build up a little of the gloss. Because sometimes if they soak too much into the paper, you never get to actually see the effect. And then I'm going to go over it also with some of this yellow so that you can see that it should give the impression. Now this is when, I think in one of our pages we were talking about broken color. This is a really awesome part of that, because by placing the two colors, over, oops, you can't see that, I'm sorry. Placing the two colors over it, you get that, immediate sense of green where the two colors meet. So that's something to think about. If you put pink over it, by rights, pink or red, you would begin to get, I think, the impression of purple or a little bit of a lavender. I'm going to do it really kind of close together and thick in a few spots. So you can see how it kind of turns lavender there. So that's something else to think about too. I love the color of this one, don't you know it? So I'm going to fill my page with just really random funky stuff. I don't really care what is on it. I want to see if this works at all. Oh, look at that. 12 years later, and the product still works. These are a little tough to squeeze out sometimes, especially these because it's a little old. Stuff's been sitting in here for 12 years. Oh, maybe the end is clogged. There we go, it's starting to come out. Might make a big mess when it finally pops. Oh, come on, come out. I can't squeeze that much. Let me see. This was the stuff that was up at the end. I don't think it's going to be real viable, but we'll leave it on there. This is new. This is not old at all, but the end. This has got a really fat tip on it, though. It's not a real thin one like the other one. So it's more like the varnish, really. Something is going on with that varnish, by the way. What is up with that? No, I think it's just where it saturated the paper and made it wet, so it's a little bit darker in color. I don't have the patience for these. I never had the patience for these, even back in my card making days. So this one's going to be, obviously a lot thicker. What else do we have? Oh, and we have glue. This little glue pen, if it's not clogged up, kind of have to let it run down to the end. This one clogs up all the time. I always have to open it up with some kind of a stick pen or something. Hold on. Just so happen to have one right here handy for this very reason. I can see I've really, destroyed the end of it, constantly poking a pen through it. Alright, let's see if we can get some glue out of here now. Yes, no, maybe. Again, it doesn't want to come out. I think it's just because it's clogged. Okay, it's clogged up again, so no glue. I'm not going to fight it. There is another end on this, which is kind of like a cloth, and it gets really goopy and gunky. But you can definitely use glue as a resist. And something to keep in mind, which I love, by the way, is that glue crackles when you put paint over it. It may not here because it's not already on a painted surface. It will still crackle a little, without a doubt. Come on, there's not hardly any left in here. There we go. One of my favorite things, remember I taught you guys those little abstract flowers? I love to make little abstract flowers this way. And you can do this with this type of applicator. But what's really awesome to do these flowers with is glue stick. Because glue stick, depending on the ones that you have, where's my fat one? There we go. You have different sized different sized tubes, so you can get different sized flowers. And you do have to get quite a bit on there, and it is going to reactivate because it's glue stick when it gets wet a little bit. So it's not a perfect, let me do just a couple of that I don't make it bigger. Now this one is tinted and it goes clear when it finally dries. This one, oh, this one's tinted too, I forgot. So this one's, obviously much, much larger. So you can get a bigger flower, which is almost the size of that one that I made. But you can also obviously get, a really big flower. And if you go in a circle, you get an interesting texture as well. Although, oops, that kind of flattens out a little bit when you go over it with something wet because it's glue. Have I covered everything that I had gotten out? No, I still need to use some varnish with a brush, and I'll show you that too. This is just another of those glitter glues. I don't know if this one's any good. This one I don't think has ever even been used. It's so old. These are so old. These are 12 years old because I stopped buying, at least 12 years old, because I stopped buying them at least 6 or 7 months. Yeah, this is too old. It doesn't want to come out. It's just coming out in a big, clear, goopy mess. You need a really thin pen, stick pen for that. You can't use a fat one like I just used. I don't know if I have a really tiny one. Oh, what do I care if it messes it up, right? Right. So I'm going to use the, it's not like I've been using these things for the last 12 years. Oh, this is not even, it's just, I think the glue itself, the product itself has just gotten really thick because it wasn't, oh, nice. I guess it was stopped up. Well, there you go. We can use a brush on that. Oh, my goodness. Don't need that much on there. But these are pretty glossy, and I think, if I remember right, certain brands, the Stickles dry a little matte. I think this one, though, does dry a little bit glossy. See if I can do that somewhere else. Oops, again. It's coming out really easy. I think it thinned out over time. I wish they had been this way when I wanted to use them because it's a lot easier to get them out. Back in the day, so to speak, I would cramp my hands up trying to get those things out of there. Okay, so using a liner brush, and let's see if I've got, I don't have varnish in any kind of a tub, so I'm just going to mush some out here. So you just take your liner brush, saturate it, get a lot of varnish on there, and you can just doodle away. Go slow. You can see when you run out of varnish. You don't want it to be so thin that it doesn't dry glossy, that it soaks entirely into the paper and that there's no glossy finish on it. You do want it to remain kind of glossy. I have to do flowers in like pieces and parts when I'm using a brush like this. Let's see. I'm going to just take this little fan brush and I'm just going to tip the ends into it. I don't want to saturate, if I can, the top of it. And then I'll just make, I think there was glue stick there, but I'll just make some rather, random abstract lines. Now this is probably going to dry pretty thin. It's not going to pick up a whole lot, I don't think. We'll see what we can do with it. But it's fun to, this is another one where you can layer it over top of itself. and everywhere that you've doubled up on the medium, you know, everywhere you've crossed the lines, in other words, you're going to get a pattern, more resist pattern than you would otherwise. Alright, so enough playing with that. What else do we have? I don't think these scribbles, they're pretty gross. I don't know. Yeah, that one's gross. Plus it looks like funky colored inside. I'm tossing it. Don't know about this one either. If I remember right, yeah, this one's hard as a rock. I absolutely hated those because of the sticky factor, so this is just a little bit more, oop, wee! It's just a little glitter glue. Whatever, and I'll see this one's coming out like odd. It's like really thick, funky stuff. I'm done playing with that. Alright, I'm going to let all of this various stuff that I've put on here. Now I got like a poopy piece that flung out of that glitter glue. And I don't want it there. It looks weird. Okay. I'm going to stop with this now, and I'm going to, oh, there was something else I wanted to show you, and that was layering the glossy glaze pens over themselves again. Just going to go right back over my lines. And if you double your lines, ooh, I'm shaking a little bit. Did I take my allergy pill today? I don't know. I don't think I did. Holy cow. I'm surprised I'm not like gagging and stuff. You can see how much, you know, darker and glossy and raised it is there. So it'll probably resist a lot better in that one spot. And then you can also combine things. So you can do like the clear, you can combine it. I'm looking for, I covered some of them up, not realizing I was covering them up. I'm going to go over this a lot because this particular clear isn't like feeding out a lot. Oh, that's better. It's feeding out a little more this time. So you can combine your items to get even more awesome results. And also too, if you don't want what you've written to be read, then go over it again. And something I learned from a mixed media artist in a video, I think I actually paid for the video, is to write something out. Like, say for instance, write your, trying to think of a number that isn't an issue. Write out your zip code. And then if you have another zip code that just pops into your head, and then maybe a really old phone number. Okay, so then there's two things. I'm only going to fill in one because the other one I'm going to save for after we've put color down. So on this larger one down here, everywhere there's a little loop, I'm just going to fill that in. These are like just simply writing with varnish, to be honest with you, that has a little color added to it. Then you can also connect things. So like this is a 3 right here, and it stops at the 9. So I'm just going to continue as if it didn't stop and fill it in. and I think I'll do that with the other 3. There's 2 more 3s in this bottom one, so I'm going to do it 2 more times. Here there's nothing to it to rest against, so I'm just going to pretend that there was something there. And you can do that same thing with another color. I'm going to use the same color that I wrote in, and I'm just going to connect. As long as you're making pretty much circle-y sort of shapes, that's your goal. So connect things so that you're making loops. I want to say it was Anne Bagby that I learned this little trick from. And it's just, it's far more beautiful in watercolor or in acrylics with water. I just don't happen to have those. And then you can then, get away from the circles a little bit if you run out of circle-y shapes. And so I'm just going to make up my own little shapes basically by connecting lines, really. So here I'm not circle-y at all actually, but it's totally okay, it doesn't matter. So now you would never really know that was started out as an old phone number. That's a really awesome way to come up with abstract. It works well as small areas within a painting, but here I think it'll look pretty interesting when we layer all of this. And then I'm going to layer blue here over it, just for fun, just to see how that turns out. And then I'm also going to do some dark purple. Alright, I'm just playing at this point, just goofing off. So I'm going to stop recording, no point in it. I want everybody to go fill their pages. And when I say fill it, this is not full, okay? In fact, I'm going to come back and show you when my page is full. So I'm going to stop now the recording part of the process, and then I'll come back in a few minutes when I have it done, and it won't take me long. And you can fill with really big loops, really big writing. You don't have to do small detailed stuff. Alright, so welcome to my mess. I wrote really big with the varnish, and then I actually also went in and used this little tulip slick thing stuff, fabric stuff, because I figured it's going to be sticky a little bit anyway with all this glitter glue and stuff on there, so I went ahead and just made a bunch of dots and stuff with that. Something that I intentionally did not show you because it's not actually an idea that was, an idea of my own, I guess you would say. And I tend to, I do my absolute level best to try to not teach other people's ideas. And when I do, I try to, make certain I'm giving plenty of credit. But if you don't like to draw, doodle, or write, or you feel like you don't have a tool that's going to give you a fine enough effect, you can also use, do this through stencils. There's absolutely nowhere left on here, so I'm just going to use this little piece of cardstock. I was testing out something I was sewing. So I'm going to just kind of slide this out of the way. This needs to dry fully anyway. But you can take, so for instance, this is the clear varnish. You can just take the clear varnish. Wow, I got a lot out of there, didn't I? You don't want to apply it with something that's going to soak it up too much, though. So I tend, when I'm going to use this, to spend a long time digging through my paint palette, or my palette knives. Where are the palette knives I like? None of the ones I like are in here. What do I do with them? I guarantee I stuck them back in the wrong drawer or something. Alright, so I tend to use a palette knife to do this, so that way I know that I'm getting, a nice thick application, and I'm not using a brush or a sponge, which is just going to soak it, soak it all up. Oh, gross. Something extra and a cat hair. You can also do this though with any of the other products that we talked about. So white glue will generally dry glossy. This stencil is just plain dirty with gunk. That's why it's discolored. Just put some white glue out there. Again, use your palette knife or a credit card or gift card or whatever. Just something to smooth it out and spread it around. A little bit thick is better if possible. Glue will flatten a little bit, but hopefully not too much. It is, going down on some thirsty cardstock. And then you can also do the reverse if there's a lot of product. I don't know. I was scraping pretty well, so I don't know how much will. There's a little, not much. And then you can use any of those other little products that I had. So any of the glitter glues. What was I had in my head I wanted to use a certain one, but now for the life of me I can't remember which one I wanted to use. Don't you hate it when that happens? Your brain just stops for a second. Oh well, I guess I'll just use, and whatever comes to hand. I'm going to use this funky one. Just like some kind of a rainbow color. It's really messy. No, I'm catching the end of the bottle with the stencil because I'm terribly lazy. If you don't have a palette knife or a card, you can also do it with your finger. Just make sure that you don't press so hard that there's, depending on how thirsty your surface is, it may not be glossy enough when it dries. Alright, so I just need to get all this glue off of here. Now there's plenty on the back of it, now that I've wiped it off onto the table. So I'm just going to get a baby wipe and clean up my mess a little bit. But you can use your stencils if you don't, like to draw, want to draw, feel like drawing. You can use anything. What a mess. Oh, I love glitter, but it gets everywhere. Whoa. I'll probably be printing a new one of these soon anyway because all that glue is icky. And the baby wipes that I have are the kind that have like little fibers. I don't have the kind, I'm not sure there is a kind, but if there is a kind that doesn't have all these little fibers, I don't have them. I thought there was, but I could just be fanciful thinking, wishful thinking on my part. Okay, so I'm done with this lesson. I'm just rambling on at you anyway. So we'll work on both of these things. Maybe I'll just make this like a tip-in or something into my journal. You guys don't have to make two unless you want to. You can if you want to. Do anything you want. But once this is all nice and dry for tomorrow's lesson, we will come back in and we will have a lot of fun playing with this. And I think you'll be genuinely, unless you've seen it before or you've done it yourself, you'll be genuinely surprised at how cool it ends up looking. Now, there was something else I wanted to talk about, and again, I probably could make this like a little separate video, but it's not going to be very long. It's going to be pretty short, so I don't know if I've showed you these before or not. I don't know if I showed them in the first 30 days class either. I've probably showed them at some point, but anyway, I'm going to do it again. If you've seen these already, you can leave. You don't have to keep watching the video. For those of you who are new, for those of you who maybe aren't new but haven't taken a lot of classes or haven't acquired a lot of background techniques, the absolute best way to get a whole toolbox full of background techniques is to join a swap with other like-minded artists who know one or two, or just want to share background techniques. I was in 2 different groups. This group was, this was called we call this a fat book. And this was, I want to say like 6 months in the making. everyone who joined, and there were, I think, like 300 or so, or 500 participants, maybe 500, because there might be 250 per stack. Every single person had a different, unique background technique that they did. And basically, you made up, however many people were in the actual swap, you made up your technique, and then you wrote out the instructions for it. You did that for every single person in the swap. This was our Fat Book swap, and I want to say it was like either like 350 people or 500 people. It was huge. It was a lot of I made a lot of these. Where's mine? I usually stick my own in the very front because it's my book and I'm, all about me. But I don't know where I stuck my own on this one. I don't see, this was mine here. So I stuck mine just somewhere in the middle. But basically I had to make an individual, little page. I made full huge pages and cut them down to size. Of my technique, along with writing out my instructions. Now it's upside down right now. And this was what I called a bubble wrap background. That was how I made it. And this was my own idea. I mean, totally, I racked my brain to come up with ideas that would be unique, that no one else had. In fact, I entered this one with a different type of technique, and someone else was, I don't know, mistakenly or something, accepted in with the same technique. So I didn't like that because then I thought, well, everybody's going to get two of that one. So I actually developed this idea instead, which I thought was pretty fun. But if you can find a group of like-minded artists, I know there are, what do they call them, like swap bots. I know there are various different swap groups that you can get involved in. Try to join one and wait it out for a little bit to find out whether or not they have good results. Because the only problem with this is, you join a group, say you get 30 or 40 backgrounds, you do all of yours, you mail them out, and you never get your own. That sucks. So try to make sure you're working with people who are pretty reputable, and whoever is running it, makes that person is holds people accountable and keeps up with it, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is a really awesome way to get background ideas that you might not have ever thought of yourself. So that one was kind of similar to mine, except that that's just a visual texture, not a physical texture. But it's really awesome, and because you get the instructions with it, you never lose it. Now I tried to make my own book with this wire binding, and it was god-awful ugly, and I need to rebind that. This was another one that I did. This was a much smaller swap, a much smaller group of artists, and these artists, we all knew each other a lot better than, this group was huge. So this one was actually, in my opinion, a better swap, just because we got, these were all, I don't really want to say they were all accomplished mixed media artists, but these were people who were definitely about thinking outside of the box. So these techniques were much more complicated, multiple layered, using, on a lot of them, using products that at the time weren't something that everyone readily knew about. And like this one, it's called Never Dull Resist, but you're actually using like 3 or 4 different combined techniques to get to one. So they're not only using Never Dull on a magazine image, but they've also dropped tar gel down onto it to get that resist effect there. This is bleaching. But yeah, there was some really awesome stuff. These were mine, and this was not the prettiest one. I kept the less attractive ones for myself. Do you know what I mean? Because like I wanted the people I was trading with to get the better samples. And for this right here, if You wouldn't know it probably from looking at it. It's not scrapbook paper. It's just distress ink pads, a yellow or an orange one, and the darkest brown. And it's just direct to paper with the pad, and then you just create like a plaid pattern. It's pretty awesome. And then this is one of my, this is Tyvek, painted Tyvek paper. And if anyone wants to see how to do this, I'd be happy, super happy to show you guys this in the class if you want to know. And then of course I printed the background onto the paper that I adhered it down with. You can see the distress ink pads bleed through over time. Interesting, huh? But yeah, so if you're reasonably new, or you just haven't had a lot of experience with a lot of classes where you've learned a lot of background techniques, some of these are really awesome. Some of them lend themselves more to doing painted papers that you can then use later. Like this one is the what is this one called? Drag Art Backgrounds. That's what it looks like. I'm sorry. This right here is soap bubbles, and I thought that's what the technique was, and I was confused because it didn't make sense what she was saying to do. But that's the actual technique there. Like this technique, or these bubbles, soap bubbles, that's one of those techniques where you got to get several things out, and you're going to make a little bit of a mess. So you might as well, this is crayon batik, you might as well do several sheets at a time. Others, mine, the Tyvek, I do a huge sheet at one time and then cut it down. This requires sewing, so I might not do a whole sheet of that. I might do that just as a product. This again would be one that I would do very specifically for a specific journal page. Same thing. Oh, that one I would never do. It's too hard. Requires too much time and effort on my part. I'm lazy. Some of these also too, it's fun, it's interesting because I think this is this the coffee one? No, this is the combed background. There's also one in one of these books that's made with coffee. It's disgusting. It over time it just completely disintegrated. It was beautiful when we first got the books, but now it's like really gross to go to that page. This one's just really sticky. This is another version of, let me see, is this Tyvek? Nope, this is brown craft paper. That's the very similar technique to what I did here, except for this one looks glossy, but it's a pretty similar technique. And I have my own version of this that doesn't, oh, this is craft paper. Yeah, this is just craft paper. But I don't really do what this person does for theirs. Like they use mica powder and all kinds of stuff. I don't do that. There's an easier, faster way to do it. I call it foil paper, and again, that's another one that I'd be happy to teach you guys if you want to learn how to do it. But anyway, I just stop reminiscing, and because I know, like most of these people, it's just really fun. But if you're interested, find a group that's willing to swap, and you can come up with some, get a collection. This is like the best. You know how you go to the store and you buy a mixed media technique book and you look at the pictures and you look at the instructions and you hope you can make something like that? Well, this is way better because you have the real touchable, feelable results right in front of you. So if you get a chance, see if you can find someone who, a group that will teach you. This one is fun. I love this cover. This is my absolute favorite. And I probably knew this from before, but I just realized that it's actually a technique. Stained kinwashi paper, but you need a particular paper called kinwashi paper. That's probably why I've never done it. And you know what? It just looks like mulberry paper to me. I might have to try that out, see if I can replicate that, but not use that funky. Wonder what kinwashi paper is. I better look it up first, though. Put gel medium on your metallic paper. No, I better read that. Maybe it's not what I think it is. Okay, I just wanted to share with you because I think that it's a really great way to get some fun creative ideas, and you can use those ideas over and over and over again in your own artwork. So, you know, in your journal, your artwork, whatever your you know, creative endeavors lead you to. I have them out because I have to decorate these letters for my granddaughter to go in her room. And at first I was just going to do very girly girl, but then I realized that, you know, I had something similar to this. It was not this big. It was my name cut out of wood when I was a kid, and I pretty much stuck it in the closet after a certain age because it was very girly girly, and it didn't really fit me once I became, you know, more of a teen. So I thought about it and I decided that I want to do the letters for her, but I don't want to do the letters in a style that she's going to outgrow. I want to try to do them in a style that's going to follow, you know, her for a lot of, you know, her life basically. So this might be something that would work, and I could just do it in a color that would be fine for a little girl as well as, you know, teenager, young adult. Maybe even, you know, she might take them off with her when she goes to college. Probably not, huh? And she probably isn't going to take Grammy in her suitcase either, so not looking forward to those days. But anyway, that's why I had them out, and I wanted to show them to you because I thought immediately that, wow, I wish my students could have that. And I did try to start one of these in video format on ArtGeeks, and either no one was interested or I just had a lot of people who don't really want to play. So if you guys wanted to play, or if a group of you want to get together and do it, I would be happy to throw in there, you know, some wild technique that doesn't exist until I think it up. But I promise you it will be fun and messy, I'm sure. But if you guys want to do something like that, let me know. You can either let me know in the comments of this video, you know, for this lesson, or in fact, I think if more than, say, 5 people write in and say you're interested, I'll just go ahead and make a new discussion for it in the classroom, or and tell me whether or not you're open to having other people who are not in the class join. If you are, I'll do an open discussion on the site. If you're not, if you want to just keep it to, you know, those of us in this class, then I'll make a discussion in the classroom. So just let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Anyway, all right, I've took up enough of your time today. Looking forward to playing tomorrow with our page once it's dry. And I left my stylus, whoops, which I have to turn my video off.